Hello, everyone. My name is Lami. I'm a research assistant with Tuibubon, Two Worlds, the world's first Bangladeshi Canadian immigrant digital archive. Today, I am joined by Nabila Chowdhury, a PhD student at the University of Toronto. Nabila is working on a fascinating VR project that allows migrants of various backgrounds to virtually experience cultural sites. In this episode, we'll explore how technology and memory can potentially help impact, preserve, and strengthen cultural traditions. Hello, Nabila. Thank you so much for joining me here today. To start, could you introduce yourself and share what you're currently working on?
Yes, thank you for the great introduction. I am doing PhD with migrant communities, also including Bangladeshi communities as well, and in terms of building technologies in the VR platform, especially highlighting the memory and the cultural aspect, and also the multi-generational aspects. I'm trying to bridge the gap between the grandparents, grandchildren, and also parents. Yeah, in terms of my research, it has been very heavily influenced by where it is situated, for example, in Canada. So yeah, my main focus is to work with like Canadian Bangladeshi right now who have left Bangladesh and cannot easily like experience those cultural moments or maybe struggle to share those cultural like education with their grandchildren or the children themselves because they don't get to visit Bangladesh that often. So yeah, that's where my research interest lies.
That's really interesting. Since you already mentioned the unique experiences of Bangladeshi migrants, how would you, as a Bangladeshi Canadian, explain the way that you approach the research?
Yeah, so definitely it has the duality of it because of the Bangladeshi and the Canadian. So when I first like came in Canada, I also had to do a lot of adjustment, and that's why I slowly like realizing, oh, okay. For example, the parents who may have like settled in Canada a long time ago, there may be a gap between in terms of understanding this type of cultural values or in terms of memories that are left behind in Bangladesh. So yeah, that's why I got really interested in terms of bridging this gap of culture and understanding, but using like memory as a method. Because we all know the history itself, but history is often written by people who are in power, especially in the Western context.
Mm,
So I'm trying to learn how memory can be this alternative repository of knowledge, and also at the same time like a very much so a caring method between grandparents, grandchildren, and parents who are now living in Canada. Yeah.
oh, that's beautiful. That's a really powerful way to reclaim your own history or your own culture's history. And it's really interesting that you decided to use memory. And it kind of relates to what I'm just about to ask you, which is what inspired you to use VR specifically out of every other tool to preserve cultural memory?
Yeah. So when I started like working with these families who are currently living in Toronto, I noticed that they have these like physical copies of photographs that they bring from Bangladesh.
Hmm.
And they're also making like new memories or capturing new photographs in their devices. But one of the biggest struggle is like they use these photographs, like they sort of forget about it unless someone bring this up to sort of like narrate these stories, narrate these memories. So from my study, I understood that there is a gap between like in terms of technology wise to sort of experience these photographs because photographs like still static and you need someone to explain like what is going on. So
Yeah.
from there I thought like, oh, okay, because VR as a tool like people have been using for gaming for embodiment in the research context. So I was
Hmm.
like, can we use like VR as a mechanism to sort of like embody these like cultural practices that are left behind? Or if we see like these photographs in a 3D sphere, does it evoke like some sort of presence, like, oh, maybe I'm like transported to like how airport used to look probably back in 19th or something. And that will sort of like also use as an artifact between like the grandparents, grandchildren, or parents themselves to sort of narrate these memories. So yeah, so sort of basically uh challenge this static like a way of storing knowledge and in sort of like embodying like such practices. So that is why I like got interested in VR itself.
I think that it's really interesting how you were able to identify the fact that a lot of Bangladeshi Canadians have that really big photo album
Yeah,
in everybody's home that just seems to
yeah,
collect dust. And it turns
yeah,
into lost history because what's in these albums are very valuable, but just because
yeah,
of maybe the way we're socialized into this new age, we're not prone or inclined to look through photos. We have different ways of experiencing content and knowledge. So it's really great that you were able to adapt. Through VR specifically, was there any moment or place or site that felt extremely just powerful and moving in the context of your research?
Yeah, especially for VR and also for memory. So my lens was, oh, we are trying to use like especially the memory part. How can we really, really emphasize the memory component in VR itself? So when we asked our participant to create this type of like VR environments, they really honed on to these places, like the places especially that are left behind in homeland. So for example, maybe their house and how would they celebrate Eid, for example, in their actual home and how would it look like. So they will have photographs and then they will upload it in the VR and they will feel like, oh, I'm traveling back to my like home country house. It's not
Yeah.
looking because in Canada, houses can look pretty much the same unless you bring some decorations and decorate by yourselves. But just being in VR, being in that like your old home, sort of like takes you back like to that present, to that like past moment, but you're experiencing it now. So yeah, like those type of like their houses that they grew up, that kind of environment was very impactful for them. And then some participant even used like for example environments itself, like they will go to Google Maps and they will take like a street view of Dhaka. And they will put that in the VR and they'll sort of say, oh, this is my friend's house. This is where I used to like go to school, and things like that. And in VR, it's not only the photographs that you can use, you can like also emphasize the emotions by using like music, and we also included like narration kind of storytelling. So when you are in the VR and you are looking at the photographs, you can like put music. So some participants included like how during Ramadan we will hear a Ramjanuri Roja Sheshe music. So the participants will include that, like that is playing from a television, and um, and then they will find photos of like, for example, their family members, and then they will include it. And in VR, they sort of say that they're feeling that they are with their families in their home country houses and experiencing it together. And also photographs of food, that is very important. Definitely cannot test food in VR, but it was still enough for the participant to talk about the memories and the foods they cannot test like here or cannot find it. So yeah, a lot of really varying like cultural artifacts, music, and also their personal narration. I think that was very, very important.
hmm That really helped put into perspective what this project is, because I'm not gonna lie, when I heard about a VR project, I thought of the very extravagant things we maybe see through video games,
Yeah.
like really like big mountains or roller coasters. I didn't think of mundane
Yeah.
scenarios that a lot of people take for granted or that a lot of people no longer have access to after they have immigrated, or yeah, not being able to see where their parents have grown up or their parents. So I think it's really interesting how you were able to pinpoint the things that make people people, like music, like food, and just trying to find a way to connect that through generations. I think that's really beautiful. You kind of already mentioned the impact of this, but how has the response been from participants? Could be of various backgrounds, but what have people been saying about this project?
People really appreciated it, especially because I also want to emphasize a little bit on the mundane part,
Mhm.
because sometimes like our participants, especially like parents or grandparents, they were like actively doing or actively like making their Canadian home as a part of their, like for example, Bangladeshi home. So they will play like natok on their TVs like in Bangla language, and that sort of used as like a mechanism to remind like the children, oh look, this is how the environment would look like in Bangladesh. Or they would play like television very loudly so that they will hear the Bangla language and they will sort of pick up on those type of like language, and they will also try to speak the language. So yeah, and when we take this environment in VR, first of all, because of the embodiment, it gave them a sense of presence. So they really appreciate it because for many of our participants, like how like like life goes on, people gets busy, they don't really get the moment to really appreciate or take a moment to really reflect on what are left behind and their cultural root. So this VR project really helped them to take a moment for themselves and sort of reflect on like the cultural like the knowledge and the cultural components they really appreciate, and they also want to pass it on to like next generation. And also especially for youths because it's VR. It also has the wow factor in a way to
Yes,
sort of
yeah.
like also sort of like sort of like make them think about, oh, okay, we can experience this type of like cultural like knowledge or environments in VR, which is also like both educational and a very different method of like transmitting like knowledge.
I
Yeah.
think you have something really powerful here because it's something that is able to cross different age ranges, which a lot of other tools don't always successfully do. So I think that's really interesting. With that being said, have you faced any challenges when developing this technology, or maybe during the screening process, or have the participants ran into any problems while trying to access this sort of tech?
Yes, because VR is such an advanced technologies, and even though our participants like like may not have experienced VR, like that is their first time experiencing it or have very little knowledge. So people may have perception, oh, VR, that means it's gonna be like those kind of like very advanced gaming or that type of like very simulated environment. But we purposefully designed our tool in a simple manner. So for example, it was the photographs, it was the music, it is like your personal voice that you can record. So
Mm,
even though our tool was simple and some participants did mention, like for example, if it had like videos, like our tool didn't support videos at that moment. So if it had videos, it would be like more 3D or give them like a more embodiment feeling. So that will something could be done in the future. But even though our tool was like really simple and purposefully so that people can actually use it. So yeah, I think that was one of the challenges for us. But otherwise, like even the simplicity was really had like good feedback.
Yeah, I really appreciate the accessibility of it all. But do you think this could be a question about just technology in general? But do you think there are pros or even any drawbacks or risks to using technology to help preserve culture or create new memories, bridge generational gaps? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely VR can be repurposed in a way to sort of as an alternative form of like knowledge transmission or memory curation. But we have to keep in mind like whose memory that we are trying to preserve, because
Mhm.
this type of tool like VR, it has this embodiment feeling. So it can also um, like it has the possibility of emphasizing like certain emotions as well. So
Mhm.
when we are designing this kind of tool, people really have to keep in mind, oh, whose memory are we trying to really preserve here?
Yeah.
So I think that is like definitely very important component. And also VR itself is still not accessible by many people. So definitely our participant appreciated that, oh, okay, we can experiencing it, but it's still like it's us researchers who are facilitating that study. It is not like our participant was able to take the VR and really experience it at their home. So I think that accessibility issue still remains. And yeah, I just hope in future somehow like VR will become accessible. And yeah, also this technology is designed in the Western land, not keeping in mind of marginalized population, especially.
Mhm.
So yeah, these like there are some severe accessibility issues still remains in VR
Yeah.
and technology.
Yeah, I think it's really important the way you highlight exactly whose memory are we curating.
Mhm.
Because even though this is a Bangladeshi Canadian archive, the whole point of this archive is to highlight the diversity in the diaspora. We all have very different
Mm.
experiences,
Yeah.
definitely some similarities because of historical events and connections. So I like how the project specifically uses people's own photos, their own voice,
Mhm.
their own music, because everybody's upbringing has not been the same. So it's really nice that the you're able to tailor it to their own lived experiences. But as you mentioned, it's a very um, time costly
Yeah.
event because the researchers have to personally, be paired up with the participant. Right now, it's not something that can just be given to everybody. In the future, do you see yourself creating a project that can be accessible for a lot of people, and how would that look? For example, do you think that there can be kind of a general VR experience that a lot of people from certain backgrounds can experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was just just the beginning of in terms of the projects, in terms of VR and the memory, what we can do. I'd very much like to expand on, especially like for example, our participants voiced the options like if they wished for video format, they wish for 3D format, and initially, like our prototype tool only supported, like for example, like photos that our participants collected from the internet. So even though, so this is also, I think, a great way, for example, to support or to preserve anonymity as well. So our participants actually found photos from the internet that they used as a proxy media to sort of talk about their experience, because still those photos was able to capture their emotions as well. So yeah, going forward, I would like to say especially how VR can emphasize those mundane activities. I would like to emphasize, and also the intangible activities sometimes that gets lost. So, for example, the photographs or any kind of artifact people bring, it is tangible, but what about the intangibility part of it? Like what type of emotions that artifact can evoke, or for example, yeah, and what type of like the rituals people itself, like people themselves take. So those are still not being captured in VR. So I'd like to see, can we design our like a prototype or a tool that will go beyond like only the artifact stage and more to capture this type of intangibility, the stories, the memories,
Mm.
um, also across like different generation as well, because our current VR was only for just a one person narration. So I would like to see when like a multi-generation comes in a VR space, how they themselves also negotiate the memories and the stories they're telling and curating in the VR. So yeah, that will be some next steps.
Well, that is very, very exciting. To end off, is there any final messages you have to people who might be interested in this project, in VR in general, or somebody who is hoping to maybe pursue tech? And finally, like, what impact do you hope to leave with this project?
Yeah, hopefully I like the impact I'm hoping for, especially in terms of memory, because memory is, when you think about memory, it's a very subjective component, but I think memory is a very powerful tool, especially for marginalized voices, to echo their own personal experiences and to really sort of complement like the history and like the facts in a way. So I think I would like to have my project to have an impact that, oh, okay, no, memory can be seen as a very powerful tool for this type of like personal narration and also like family narration itself as well. Yeah, in terms of the tech, I really hope that VR can become accessible so that people can really use it, because I do see the potential there. So yeah, that will be my like hope for the future. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
If there is any place somebody who can look towards your work for any updates, do you have a website or anywhere we could have updates on what's going on with this project?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I do have my website. It is my name, so nabilachowdhury.com. So I do share like some of this there, and also, yeah, my email address that I can share to later as well if people are interested to get in touch or to participate, because I do always look for participants as well. Yeah, I can share my email address with you as well. So, but
Oh,
yeah, so,
okay, that's very exciting. Well, thank you so, so much for your time today.
yeah.
We'll hope to hear more about you in the upcoming future.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.